thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Wednesday, October 16th, and today is, get ready for this, Dale, it's National Fossil Day.
Why are you telling Dale that?
Yeah, why was that directed at Dale? Damn, bro.
Jason's starting the day off with a little bit of ageism.
Some violence to start the show.
Don't worry, Jenny Beth. We didn't leave you out because it's also National Sports Day and Bra Day USA.
What about bros?
There's no bros in today's, bro. Just National Sports Day. That's all you get, Rico. Mm-hmm. Jenny Beth, it's also for you. That's also National Department Store Day.
Why is that for Jenny?
Nordstrom.
Mm-hmm. And it's also National Liquor Day, you guys. That's for everybody.
All right,
lushes.
let's go.
Yeah, that's right. We weren't going to leave you out, Sohum. Yes.
Don't make me go. It's almost noon here. I can go get some tequila if you want.
Hey, man, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. And thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above or down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. Man, kicking it off today, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, the man who has his hat on backwards today because he is, just feeling some sort of way today. That's right, it is none other than the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
Shout out to Rich Homie Quan, rest in peace.
Shout out to Snapbacks.
Some kind of way.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Thank you, Jason. And I'm so glad that we have both of our esteemed legal experts on with us today. Got some good news. I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but we'll just get into it. So yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court finally heard the Medical Marijuana Incorporated versus Horn appeal, which is a case that High 9 News has been following closely over the last year about Douglas Horn, a New York State commercial trucker who was fired from the job he had held for more than a decade after popping positive on a random drug test for THC after taking a CBD tincture believed otherwise or labeled otherwise. In 2020, Horn was ailing from injuries sustained in a trucking accident while working, so he purchased Dixie X, an over-the-counter CBD tincture labeled as THC-free. Shocked, Horn said that he sent Dixie X to a lab, which confirmed it indeed contained THC. He was fired, and after over a decade of legal battles, the case had finally made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And according to Reuters reporter John Krusel, the justices heard an appeal led by Dixie X producer, Medical Marijuana Incorporated, of a lower court's decision allowing Horn to bring a civil suit against San Diego, California-based company under the RICO Act. The civil provisions in the law permit triple damages for successful lawsuits by any person injured in his business or property as a result of certain actions by a defendant. So per the article, tripping on my words today. Sorry, y'all. Per the article, some of the justices seemed receptive to the company's argument that Horn's loss of employment was not the kind of business injury that Congress meant to guard against when it enacted the RICO Act. Of course, it was conservative Justice Brett Kavanaugh that expressed concern about making it too easy for plaintiffs to bring civil RICO suits simply by characterizing certain personal injuries as injuries to a business or property. That would be a dramatic, really radical shift in how tort suits are brought throughout the United States, Kavanaugh told Horn's lawyer, Yesha Anand, referring to personal injury law known as torts. And we would expect a clearer indication from Congress. Lisa Blatt, the lawyer representing Medical Marijuana Incorporated, argued that allowing Horn's suit to proceed would open the door to plaintiffs making a federal case out of personal injury complaints better addressed under state law. It is utterly implausible that Congress federalized every slip and fall involving RICO predicates, Blatt said, referring to RICO crimes such as embezzlement, extortion, or mail fraud. But according to Cruzel, the questions posed by some of the justices suggested that they might be inclined to let Horn's civil RICO suit proceed. Liberal Justice Elena Kagan asked Blatt this: if you're harmed when you lose a job, then you've been injured in your business, have you not? I guess what I'm saying is the simplest, clearest reading of this statutory language is it does not distinguish by what causes the harm. It just says if you're harmed but in a way that's in your business or property, which has been understood to include being harmed by loss of a job, and that's by reason of a racketeering activity, then you're entitled to threefold the damages you would otherwise be. Horn and his wife Cindy have been doing all the right things to get to this point. In 2015, they brought a lawsuit in federal court in New York seeking monetary damages, claiming, among other things, that Medical Marijuana Incorporated and associated companies violated RICO's provisions. Horn had the tincture independently tested in a laboratory, which confirmed that the product indeed contained THC. And according to the suit, a pattern of racketeering activity by the companies,
today,
including violations of the federal controlled substance. Let me finish. Including violations by the Federal Controlled Substances Act, as well as mail fraud and wire fraud, inflicted a business or property injury on Horn in the form of his firing. A federal trial judge ruled against Horn's civil RICO claim, but New York's Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the judge's decision, prompting Medical Marijuana's appeal to the Supreme Court. The justices are expected to rule in the case by the end of June. I guess my question here specifically to our own in-house legal experts, Uncle Dale, Tio Loco Schaefer, and Omar Figueroa, is if Horn ends up winning this civil RICO against the company, will it open the floodgates for 1 million more lawsuits from folks who've ingested CBD labeled products that have also been found to contain THC? What would be the effect of this should he go forward and win? I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Let's talk about it.
Certainly possible.
What's that, Dale?
Definitely would open the floodgates to litigation if the Supreme Court upholds a civil RICO action. Something that's notable about a civil RICO action is that there's treble damages plus attorney fees. So there's incredible incentives for plaintiffs' lawyers to take on civil RICO cases. So I do anticipate that if the Second Circuit is affirmed by the Supreme Court, that there will be more litigation of this type. And just because a lawsuit is filed doesn't mean it's meritorious, but we will see increased litigation.
Well, I'd like to see clarification of the predicate part of this, that you in fact are engaging in RICO activities, because this seems more like an unfair business practice and false advertising. Okay, and I'd like to see some breakdown of that, because RICO was designed for organized crime, and it's now being tethered out to apply to business activities that most states find are unlawful. But to get into the federal area, I'd like to see that clarified a little more, because I got business clients. I want to make sure I advise them properly. And this one, it could throw, like I told you earlier, a huge turd in the punch bowl here for businesses trying to do this, because there's a line between puffing and outright lying. And this one, you say there's no THC in there. Well, hemp allows 0.3% THC. And this is like being on probation and eating poppy seed cake and pissing positive. Okay. Where does this really fall into the intent of RICO? And if so, I want it clarified, because as Omar said, the attorney's fees and treble damages could be, astronomical for some of these businesses. Just think they're trying to sell product by shading the truth a little bit.
I have a question. How do we know that this trucker didn't actually try some cannabis and is just using this tincture as a scapegoat for the reason that he tested positive?
Well, they said he sent it to a lab, right, for independent testing.
Right, he did say that. And then, we've had, from a formulary standpoint, we've had issues in the past where we had a tincture that was a CBD, CBN, all hemp derived, no THC, right? But the body metabolizes CBN back to its original form, which is THC. So when you've had no THC, but you have that hemp derived CBN, you can still pop pot. So we realized that very quickly on and couldn't sell it to people who were like in the military or police officers or things like that. So I wonder from a formulary standpoint, which formulary he got. Also, that's a heat process that converts THC into, which you pull from the mother liquor in hemp products, into CBN, right?
I love when y'all say mother liquor.
Reverse. I know you do, Jason, but I just think that's interesting. I'd like to see which form of Dixie Elixir's tincture he got. And Rico, if you don't believe me, it's a much bigger company. You're welcome to go look.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, they are a very big company. They are a very big company. You are right about that, Jenny Beth.
I have another question too for Dale and Omar. Is there any possibility that Dixie or Medical Marijuana Inc. Could transfer liability onto the lab for potentially giving them incorrect results, even though we know that probably that was done intentionally so that it could be certified as hemp and sold?
Yeah, they'll probably point fingers at each other, and in the end, by pointing fingers at each other, they just prove each other liable. So that's something that often happens.
I mean,
I'd cross-complain against them if there was any reason to believe, because you want to bring their insurance company into it also, and extra eyes on the case. It's fairly common in these larger tort cases that they bring everybody to the party to make sure that they've got more deep pockets to pull money from. But I would like to see clarification for practicing attorneys on what exactly qualifies as a RICO violation, because this could be huge for companies trying to start up, because right now I don't think hemp companies are really doing the types of COAs we see in like California cannabis, where they're looking for everything. As I said, you're going to find THC in these products because it's difficult to scrub it out.
So,
and I wonder, honestly, if they only tested
the litigation in the past, suing the police department and using civil RICO statute to allege that certain police who were like robbing motorists on Highway 101 were a racketeering enterprise. And we had a successful federal lawsuit in San Francisco federal court. So I know civil RICO is extremely broad, but it's not often litigated in modern times. And there's not a whole lot of civil RICO experts. And so the guidance that you're looking for is probably not going to come, Dale. What's going to happen is plaintiffs' lawyers are going to file lawsuits, and the courts will interpret the scope of the RICO statute. That's what happened in this case that we're discussing.
So you're saying it's all going to happen on a case-by-case basis, Omar?
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to happen. There's not going to be any advisory opinion that, lays it out what the scope of liability is. But really, a lot of these businesses, they're not doing an intricate RICO analysis, because if they were, they would stop what they're doing immediately. So they're just proceeding regardless of the intricate RICO analysis.
I mean, couldn't these guys...
Omar, so if this thing rises to the top and this guy Horn actually wins, what happens to all of these companies that are on Amazon that you can order online? Like so many of these companies have been found to have THC levels higher than are actually permitted. Are people going to be able to sue them out of existence, like every single one of them?
some of them see the writing on the wall and, are probably getting ready to transfer their assets and into shelter.
Get the hell out of America.
To that point, honestly, that's probably better for the plaintiff in that case, because now you can bring Amazon into it, and they got some very, very deep pockets.
And to be fair to the company, if he only did a retest on the one tincture that he had, was to say this guy didn't, like Jason said, smoke a joint on Saturday night before his piss test, squeeze a couple drops of distillate in there, and he's like, oh, it wasn't my fault. I took this.
Exactly.
Well, he claimed under oath that he has never been a marijuana user and has never touched marijuana.
Doesn't
and
mean
that
he's
was
not a
literally
liar.
The only product that he has ever taken.
And the Menendez brothers said under oath they didn't kill their parents.
Fair enough. I have a question for you guys. I have a question for Omar and for Dale. Couldn't these companies limit their liability if they just had like a little stick figure, like pissing on a tree with like a little circle and a line going through it to show that like it could possibly give you a dirty test?
I think there's better ways to
keep it helpful. Disclaimers are always helpful. That's why when you see a drug commercial on TV, they run through the litany of shit that could happen to you. That's assumption of the risk. You can try that. But when you specifically advertise there's no THC and you put a disclaimer, you might find some, I think you still got some problems there. And I don't know about you, Omar, but I've attended a few marketing meetings where you just want to slap the shit out of people coming up with stupid ideas of how to sell products. And this should be incorporated in those, sit down and shut up. You're going to get everybody sued if you try that kind of stuff. And it's a lesson for the industry that we still got a lot of problems we have to try and tether out here.
It's the danger. It's the danger that you. Go ahead, Omar.
That cannot be, cashed. It's a huge problem. And so many times the marketing people are disconnected from production and from actual sales and the whole, supply chain. And so it's really important to review marketing efforts because they could lead to tremendous liability as we see in this case.
So there's the risk that you take on when you play in the loophole game.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. And on that, we are going to roll into a commercial, and we're going to be right back. The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
Yeah, y'all. It is hump day. And our head honcho over here, Jason Beck, has some heat for y'all to keep y'all humping in them sheets.
Oh, yes.
Y'all know who it is coming to the stage. It is the Christopher Columbus apologist himself. Fox News favorite stoner, Jason Beck.
Yes, you are right about some of those things, Rico. At least the last part. But it's going to be okay. Because, man, I'll tell you what, though. This is an interesting story, you guys. Very interesting story. Because a chain of marijuana dispensaries in Arizona is getting creative for election season by offering special election-themed strains of cannabis, each representing one of the presidential candidates from the Democratic, Republican, and Green parties, you guys. Of course, they couldn't leave out the Greenies. The dispensary behind this fun promotion is, guess what? That's right, it's Curaleaf. And they're calling it their Toke the Vote campaign. With the election just 3 weeks away, the campaign has attracted attention for mixing politics with pot. And in a quote, they say, "We wanted to have some fun with this," said Curaleaf Representative Luke Flood. "It's a fun industry, so we approach this with a lighthearted spirit," he says. Curaleaf is offering 3 themed strains: Kamala Kush for Vice President Harris, Donald OG for the former president and future president, and Space Jill for the Green Party. Interesting, Space Jill for Green Party candidate Jill Stein. Flood explained that the strains are available at 14 of Curaleaf's 16 stores across Metro Phoenix, and all priced consistently at $30 per eighth. Each of these election-themed strains has its own distinct THC content and flavor, and in a quote they say, all three strains are testing around 29.5% THC. Flood said, the flavor profiles vary a bit. There's an earthy, cheesy, and zesty vibe depending on your palate. And for those curious about how the sales are going, it seems the race is close. In the quote, they say, right now it's neck and neck between Donald OG and Kamala Kush, Flood noted. Curaleaf's election-themed strains will be available at all of their Arizona locations through Election Day on November 5th, you guys. Well, look at this, man. Curaleaf is getting into the political game with some political kush. I think this is fantastic. I wish I was in Arizona, and I just wonder how come they're not selling these strains in more of the markets that they're actually in, why it's segregated to only Arizona. That's something I would love to know. But you know, they're not the only company that is getting involved in the political theme for cannabis, because we also have Parody Gummy that's getting ready to release, and those have 3 distinct SKUs that are going to be coming out, and you guys can check those out at parodygummy.com. That's PARODYGUMMY.com, and you can get your pre-orders now and get them in the mail for Election Day. They are going to have 3, you guys. We are going to have the Bad Hombre, the Sleepy Joes, and the Raspberry Riots, all politically themed. And I think Millie has the labels to show you guys. Boom, right there. Yes, the Bad Hombre, the Raspberry Riots, and the Sleepy Joes, you guys. So make sure you go and check those out.
You guys did a good job on that, Jason. I like the packaging design you came up with.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wait, I got a question about Curaleaf, though. Are they?
You're right.
They're working on the RFK. You smoke the RFK pack, you get brainworms.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
You know the jokes with Curaleaf coming out with this shit pretty much write themselves.
Yeah, they do, right?
Is this interference?
I mean, oh man. I feel like they could have came up with a better name. Like I'm glad they called it. What's that, Omar?
I think the Trump strain should be called the Trump Pretendica because it makes you confused and gives you a headache.
I don't know. I mean, that just might be
It makes you
Curaleaf weed in general.
shit your pants. Is that what you're saying too, Joe?
Oh, the Sleepy Joes make you do that? Make you, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Trump Kush makes you shit your pants and then just start dancing around like an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
Avoid all white chairs.
I mean, I don't know. I prefer the bulletproof runts that came out.
What's that, Jenny?
The bulletproof runts. I don't know. After the first tip, there was some pretty solid packaging that came out, but that was on the illicit market. But good job, you guys.
I feel like they missed an opportunity to license to do something with Jilly Bean for Jill Stein. Like that was sitting right there.
Oh, Miss Jill, I will speak for her because she is my weed mom and I love her to death. Shout out Miss Jill, TGA Genetics. She would lose her ever loving shit. I promise.
Well, I mean, with her permission, of course.
Yank it.
Shout out to Big Pharma.
Not be the Jilly Bean. I love her. Cheers, mom.
Oh boy, you guys. This is fun. I think
Cornel West did not like her at all. That's why he left.
I like the fact that these cannabis companies are getting involved in the election, and you know what I'm saying. You know, encouraging their customers to purchase this stuff. I like this.
Keep your politics out of my weed.
Right. I think it's appropriate too because I mean Curaleaf. I don't know how good their product is down in Arizona. So you might get some mids flower, some mids candidates.
You know what?
Yeah, they're saying 29%. I'm like, bet.
You know what they should be doing?
I do want to see what the sales look like on these. See if they'll reflect
exactly.
the polls.
I
said they were neck and neck.
I agree with that, Rico, and I wish that a portion of the proceeds would be going to each one of these political parties.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah,
just saying.
They can't do that. Just the same way that we can't directly donate to any nonprofits that get federal funding, right? Because then they're going to lose their federal funding because we're federally illicit. But I do think that this is probably the closest that cannabis is going to come to being actually part of this electoral cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Are cannabis companies allowed to donate to PACs though?
Yes.
Yes, and that's all the dark money. But really, cannabis is now part of the electoral cycle. Like Kamala just brought it to the forefront. She says she's going to legalize it at the federal level.
Yeah, but that's just lip service, Omar. She needs to be using the language of descheduling. Legalizing it, I mean, cannabis is technically already legalized, and people are still going to jail for it.
Well, she just lapped Trump on that issue. But
she has not lapped Trump on that issue. Stop the cap. Trump legalized cannabis with the Farm Bill. Look at all the THCA selling going on across the country.
Jason, this is not Fox News. If you're gonna just start spouting a bunch of bullshit, like bring the stats behind it.
Those are true stats. Brother. Those are true stats. Look at all the companies that have THCA on the market.
It's true because you said it. Yeah, it's just true because you said it.
It's just reality.
Nah, man.
It's just reality.
Wait, so do you buy the strain associated with the candidate that you support, or the one that you want to smoke? Because
you know what? That's a great question.
Smoking on your top five.
That is a great question right there, Sohum, because I often wonder that myself. And personally, I would probably buy the stuff that I would want it to smoke over whichever candidate it is. But at the same time, if you're not buying the candidate that you like, it does create the opportunity for an upsell for the person to still purchase that because they like that candidate also.
But what happens when you're out of a certain strain and then your customers come in there and they get all pissed off because you ain't carrying that shit no more? That's gonna cause some alienation.
Well, maybe.
I mean, I think they're just going to go back to whatever they were calling that strain before when they had it in the store, clearly.
Are you saying that U.S. citizens are level-headed people? I can see them going to Fox News and saying, this Curaleaf is liberal as fuck. They're not carrying. This is America today.
Oh, boy.
You're acting like we are rational people these days.
We are totally rational people, bro. What are you talking about, Rico?
That train left the station a long time ago.
Right. Speaking of trains leaving the station, we are going to roll right into attorney Mr. Dale Schaefer. He's the founder of Armada Law, and at one point in time did some time for a cannabis crime. He also throws on his magical cape and is able to defy gravity by pissing up a rope. That's right, it is none other than attorney Mr. Dale Schaefer.
Good morning, everybody. My story this morning comes out of Marijuana Moment. Ben Adlin wrote this story, or it came out yesterday. And the headline is White House press secretary falsely says Biden expunged marijuana convictions, a claim that's been repeatedly debunked. Now, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, was on a show with Wendy Osifo, Dr. Osifo. I'm screwing this up, but I don't really care. And she was asked a question about whether, Biden's going to expunge, and she, rather ignorantly said, oh, he's already done that. Well, no, he hasn't. He took a little baby step towards pardoning people with federal possession convictions only. And a pardon does not automatically expunge. So it just exposed that she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she should shut up about things like this. But that's not going to stop people in political times from shooting their mouth off about stuff they don't really understand. Now, she's also still pounding the Schedule 3 thing. And in my opinion, rescheduling to Schedule 3 is a horrible thing to do. We've talked about this repeatedly, that social equity will die, and none of us are going to get licenses to do this. You'll never be able to smoke this stuff because there's not a smokable controlled substance out there. And the reality is that none of what Biden did released anybody from prison. Mm-hmm. So they're continuing to blow this horn. It's just not, making music in many people's ears. Now, as Omar just mentioned, Harris has taken the step to state she's going to federally legalize, she's going to work with Congress. I'd like to see a whole lot more detail about this, because you have to work with Congress to change the scheduling, take it out of the Controlled Substances Act, which I'm assuming she's talking about. She's talking about recreational which means this has got to leave the Controlled Substance Act, and it takes Congress to do that. The president could, sign all kinds of executive actions. The courts, I think, would step in and stop it. You have to have Congress step in. And Harris is trying to tie all this to we're going to advance the plight of the black men in this country who've been disproportionately maltreated for cannabis. We're going to put them in a position to access wealth and jobs. And I'd like to hope that would be true, but based upon past history, I'm not holding my breath. Now, Tim Walz loped along and said, we should leave it up to states. Well, if that's all you got to say, Tim, you should probably think about just shutting the fuck up. Right now, the states are trying to do this, but the federal law still holds the sword of Damocles over your head. And if you get outside of these state laws, you can still the feds come in. They haven't been doing it, but until they take that threat away, you still cannot sleep well at night if you're trying to rock in a state system here and advance your business. Now, Trump, I guess to his credit, has been talking about the medical benefits of cannabis. And quite frankly, I don't think Trump knows his ass from a hole in the ground about the medical benefits of anything. It's good to hear him say it. And he's talking about, the medical benefits now. We should leave it to the states. And based upon his track record, Jeff Sessions pulled the Cole memo. I don't think Trump particularly liked it because it was not a good political move for him. And to their credit, they didn't go after state actors. I guess if you could, you could give him some credit for anything here. But he did threaten in his signing statements for the continuing resolutions that he would ignore the spending rider. Okay. So looking back on what we've got here, I think J.D. Vance is shutting his mouth because no one believes anything he says about cannabis. He's so full of shit about this that he's just shutting up. Probably a good thing. Trump, I don't know that he really has a record he can stand on about cannabis. Walz, I don't think he knows what he's talking about either. Kamala, if she wants to get somewhere, has got to come out with a lot more details about what this would look like, because legalization is one of those terms that when you drill down on it, you have to figure out what does it actually mean. Schedule 3 is not going to legalize cannabis. It's just not. You got to get it clear out of the Controlled Substances Act and have the Congress scrub every mention of marijuana or cannabis or its isomers and salts and all that stuff out of all the federal laws, so you don't, legalize it. But if you grow 100 plants, you go to prison for 5 years. I mean, you've got to really scrub all this stuff. So I'd like to see a lot more details. And I want to remind everybody that I won my first election for president of class by promising to put Coca-Cola in the drinking fountain. And what I'm sensing here is a whole lot of promises to put Coca-Cola in the drinking fountain. And I'd say, without insulting anybody, they're all full of shit. I want to see a whole lot more detail here before I back anybody for cannabis anymore, because Obama promised us the moon and we got the Cole memo.
Yep.
We've had a lot of promises from candidates over the decades now. And it just hasn't really panned out that well. I had to eat food with a spork for 5 years because of this nonsense. I'd like to see all of that stop. I'm going to throw it back at you. What do you guys think?
I totally agree with you, Dale. Make Coke great again.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said is right, Dale. Saying that she's in support of legalization it's a general position, but it's not a policy position. And I think we need to see a more concrete policy position of what she means by that. But right now, but it's still the best of either of the candidates in terms of what their position is. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We need to see more detailed policy about what does that mean? What does legalization mean
exactly
to Vice President Harris?
That's what
I
I'm
think it's
saying.
more of the same. I think we're seeing, once again, I'm going to do this. Here's my position. Okay, but how? Okay, but when? Okay, but for whom? So, I mean, I'd like to see, something actually concrete, like at least that way. And I think this is intended to be that way, right? Because if you tell us I'm going to do X, Y, Z by day 100, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is where it's going to start, then now we have a benchmark to hold you to. So we can actually say, hey, no, this is what you said, and there's accountability. There's no accountability if you're just like, yay, weed.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I really see this as a trial balloon from the Harris campaign to see how it would be interpreted. I was interested in the framing because she called it recreational marijuana, not adult cannabis. And us reformers usually stayed away from recreational because it played into the myth of the lazy stoner stereotype.
It also advertising to children because recreational things are things that you do with your family, parks and things like that.
For fun, and that you do when you're not working. And so I really like adult cannabis better. But the fact that she's, far enough along to be okay with recreational cannabis, to me, signals, number one, not sophisticated about reform thinking and language, but number two, doesn't care what people do for recreation, understands that most Americans think cannabis is healthier than alcohol, tobacco, or other recreational substances. So the fact that there was no pushback, that, we didn't hear the evangelicals in a tizzy when she said she was going to legalize recreational marijuana, I think portends that there's going to be, if she gets elected, they're just not going to enforce the existing cannabis prohibition. But that's very different from actually legalizing cannabis, descheduling, coming up with a rational system to regulate interstate cannabis trade, intertribal cannabis trade, international cannabis trade. All of that will require more than just looking the other way.
I think it's worth pointing out too that this announcement comes as a part of a very specific and concerted effort, and they've been transparent about it, the Harris campaign, but they are very actively trying to cater to and win the votes of black men. And they've said it openly. That's why the wording of this announcement was how it was, addressing social equity and the historical wrongs that have been done to black Americans specifically, and primarily black men.
Do we think Obama put her up to this?
Man, I just, as a black man,
I think it's a valid question.
As a black man, I just think that this whole like last second Kamala and Obama coming in trying to say like do all this shit and say all this shit, like it's not going to work. It's actually working the other way around and turning black men like myself like off to both of them, like straight up. I think this bullshit word salad that she keeps on coming out with, she was doing a whole lot better when it was all about hope and joy. And now getting into specifics, I feel like you got a choice behind like I said last week, you got a choice to pick the racist ass system that produced Donald Trump or the racist ass product that was produced by this racist ass system that just wants to, at the last minute, every damn election cycle, at the last minute, oh yeah, let's say something that'll help out the black community, right? Like it's tired and it's really off-putting. And this is me saying this. I generally don't. I try to steer away from like the racist, the race game when it comes to these politics, and I try to call them out on both sides. But I think that Kamala specifically is, and the Biden administration by extension, you're losing black men at this point. Like you're losing black men. It just sounds desperate. It sounds like a bunch of bullshit. There are no specifics to anything, and I think the only thing you should be talking about if you want to catch our ears and move the needle forward is reparations. That's it. Everything else, and how you would implement those legally, because motherfuckers want those questions, and we know y'all ain't got shit else to talk about the next 3 weeks.
I think she tried to address. I think she tried to address that, Rico, when she said that she was going to give those business loans for $20,000 and make them forgivable.
Yeah, but they're towing this bullshit line.
$20,000
they're towing this bullshit line. It's saying all you're doing is you are alienating more people, and you're making people more polarized, because the way the country's divided right now, a bunch of motherfuckers on the other side are surely going to say, "What about us,
Rico?
We deserve this too,
Rico."
Right?
I have a question.
Yeah, the culture wars are just flaring up again at the worst time for them to flare up at the end of this election cycle.
Rico, I have a question for you. Do you think that if it was this $20,000, do you think that is enough to qualify to be considered as reparations?
For the record, I think it's 50,000 is the amount that they're talking about for this small business.
20,000 is the amount that's referenced.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question with a couple of other questions. Jason,
are you turning into a politician now, Rico?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question with a couple of questions. Like what do you define as reparations? Number one, who should qualify for said reparations? Number two, and if these are tied together, do you think that $20,000 is worth 400 years of oppression and generational pain?
Well, I don't think $20,000 is enough. That's a pretty easy, no answer for me.
I think it's asinine to even answer that question. Like, if for reparations, if you're going to do this shit on a federal level,
so it sounds like
asking me a question about $20,000 as a black man who has to deal with racism, whether it's covert or overt, wherever I go in this country every single day, like $20,000, like, child, please.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk to me when you want to talk some real numbers.
I'll tell you what, you definitely can't buy 40 acres and a mule with $20,000, Rico.
Maybe some of that expanding beachfront property in Florida is now coming up for $20,000.
Stop it.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's once again pandering. It's last minute. It's insulting as a black person because, like, last ditch effort every time. Oh shit, we forgot y'all can vote too.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Like I said yesterday, man. Ice Cube was right.
Mm-hmm. And on that,
I think.
Go ahead, Dale.
When we get to this rescheduling hearing that's going to take place after the election, we're going to get a chance to see just how entrenched the anti-cannabis forces are inside the government, because there's going to be a brawl takes place between the DEA and the Department of Health and Human Services over rescheduling here. And it doesn't matter what you say today. You still have to go face the forces that are lined up against you in the government and in Congress. And so this is just blowing smoke up people's asses, really what it is, to try and get attention at the last second. And again, it's the promise of Coke in the water fountain. It's a lot of nonsense. We'll see how bad this is going to be after this hearing.
Now, on both sides too, I think it's misguided, right? Because they're really overestimating the number of people that are single issue cannabis voters. Like, that is not a very large demographic, so it's completely misguided at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right. Fair enough. And what's that, Omar?
I was thinking about how her father, who's Jamaican, would interpret that, because he was very insulted when she was asked about, is she okay with cannabis? And she said, "Oh, I'm Jamaican. That's cool with me." And her father is a very conservative economist. And he was offended that she would cast all Jamaicans as, Rastafarian cannabis users. And so I'm thinking, I'm trying to appeal to, like, oh, I'm going to throw the weed bone to African Americans. If she wanted to do it, there's a right way to go about it. Get Flavor Flav and Snoop Dogg, make them your cannabis ambassadors, and have them announce it and have them reach out to young black men, and then they would buy it. It wouldn't look like a transparent toy, half-hearted, empty gesture, but it would look a lot more authentic, right? Imagine
Omar.
now if Snoop Dogg was on tour.
I think the difference is we expect that shit. We expect that shit from Trump when it comes off from her. Like you're contradicting everything that you called yourself that you're pretending to be right now.
Omar, is the reason that you chose Flavor Flav because spray packs are so popular right now?
but I think Flavor Flav really redeemed himself during the Olympics by sponsoring the water polo team.
Interesting.
All right, and it was at Jordan Childs. Yeah, he got Jordan Childs, who should have won that fucking bronze medal. He got her a bronze clock to flex on these motherfuckers.
Well, we got to go to a commercial break, and we're going to be right back. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get a Stretch and Smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
Hi, I'm Smoky Vanilla. I have my bachelor's degree in kinesiology, and I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on individuals that are in sport with chronic pain or injury. I love to intuitively create and customize a session based on the individual that I'm working with. We'll go over a few postural assessments, work together to create a wellness journey based on the health history, past injuries, or anything still affecting you today. And we'll get you back on your feet right away with less pain.
We're about to stretch, and then we're gonna smoke, because we're gonna get on our stretch and smoke. If you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to come on down and get a stretch and smoke with none other than Smoky Vanilla.
Stop what you are doing and make sure that you hit that like button. I know we'll appreciate it, you'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And make sure that you mark your calendars for this Friday, as we are going to go overtime at the end of the show. We're going to have the scientists and doctors from Abstracts Labs coming to break through some brand new science when it comes to this magical plant.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California, with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
And we're back.
We're back, Rico. Where are you there?
Up next.
Yes.
And backed by popular demand. What's that? You can hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. You're all good. Keep it rolling.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you just fine. Yes. Yes, we hear you.
So up next, and backed by and backed by
yes, we hear you.
popular demand, it is a multifaceted and multi-talented cannabis attorney, founder of Figueroa Law Group, who's also a brown belt in high-style Brazilian jiu-jitsu, here to break us off with a little hump day heat, no other than Omar Figueroa. And looking smooth in that suit, too, my brother.
Oh, yes, I changed just for all you. Thank you, Rico. Happy hump day, everyone. My story is from the MJBizDaily.com by Chris Kasakia. The headline is, California cannabis lounges and retailers outline plans to embrace cafe law. California cannabis micro-businesses and retailers hope a new state law that widely expands their ability to offer food, drinks, and live music will drive growth and provide a template for other regulated markets. Cannabis retailer The Artistry designed its newest store near the LA International Airport with kitchen space in anticipation of the long-awaited policy change in the world's largest cannabis market. Other California cannabis stores, such as Sacramento-based chain Perfect Union, which has yet to feature on-site consumption, are weighing the new options to expand beyond traditional cannabis retail channels. This legislation opens the door to a future where cannabis isn't something to be hidden or restricted, but something to be celebrated alongside art, music, and food, said Angelica Sanchez, Senior Director of Government Affairs and Compliance at Perfect Union, which operates 9 stores, primarily in Northern California. Expanding these opportunities to cannabis retailers with on-site consumption is a win for both businesses and consumers across the state, fostering community engagement and growth. The day after California Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed a bill that would have allowed small farmers to sell their cannabis products directly to consumers, he signed a separate measure on September 30th to legalize marijuana cafes, akin to those in the Netherlands. Newsom vetoed a similar bill in 2023 that would have allowed California marijuana retailers to operate traditional kitchens and host on-site events, saying more workplace protections were needed. Assembly Bill 1775 addressed those concerns by requiring employers to supply masks for workers and provide additional guidance about the risks of secondary smoke. Operationally, the legislation allows retailers and microbusinesses to establish on-premise consumption areas, the sale of fresh food and drinks, expanding an allowance that allowed only prepackaged items, and operators to host and sell tickets to live music events. The Cannabis Cafe law goes into effect January 1st, pending approvals from local governments, a challenging aspect of California's regulated cannabis program. Lauren Fontaine, founder and chief compliance officer of the Artistry, said the new policy reflects changing perceptions about marijuana use while recognizing the commercial legitimacy of consumption spaces. Under the current model, California's licensed marijuana lounges, most of which are clustered in West Hollywood and the Bay Area, either don't serve food or beverages, partner with outside suppliers such as restaurants, or operate as separate businesses entirely. Fontaine said the Artistry opened the Consumption Lounge in 2022 in West Hollywood, where it partners with third-party concessions vendors. Having the ability to directly sell food and beverage should, in theory, really help the viability of cannabis lounge businesses, she said. The Artistry secured permits for the initial build-out of a kitchen, including gas lines and related plumbing, at its new store and lounge on Imperial Highway. Management, staffers, and consultants are weighing food offerings, restaurant equipment, and concepts from artisan pizzas and gastropub fare to more traditional cafe options at the new location. Hopefully, we can launch that sometime in early 2025, which will be soon after the law goes into effect, Fontaine said. For Orange County-based marijuana brand Sauce Essentials, which sells gummies, pre-rolls, and vapes at more than 300 stores across California, marijuana cafes represent a big opportunity to expand its customer base. We're especially excited to start planning events and creating cool experiences that let people try out products firsthand, something that hasn't always been easy to do legally, Marketing Director Emma Shalloway told MJ Biz Daily via email. This is a great alternative for people who prefer cannabis and want to enjoy it in a more accepted social setting, she added. Similar to its retail and consumption lounge model in West Hollywood, customers at the Artistry's new location can purchase cannabis products at the on-site store or with a server. Lounge patrons can rent an array of consumption devices, from Puffco Pro dab rigs to Stundenglass gravity bongs. The company also introduced a mixologist-developed marijuana cocktail program at its location in Hawthorne. Patrons can add a prepackaged 3 milligram or 10 milligram sidecar of THC oil to non-infused cocktails. There's a lot of options around how you can consume your cocktail, Fontaine said. The new location near the Interstate 105 and 405 interchange, a major transportation artery in LA, has catered to locals as well as travelers flying in and out of the LA airport, according to Fontaine. We're getting both locals and tourists, she said, adding that the business is buoyed by a lack of licensed competitors in the area. She said the lounge model is unique to the area because Los Angeles prohibits cannabis consumption spaces. In October 2022, voters in the coastal community of Redondo Beach rejected a special election referendum to add a third marijuana retail permit. A month later, voters in neighboring El Segundo, Hermosa Beach, and Manhattan Beach overwhelmingly backed existing bans on commercial cannabis activity. Despite the laundry list of challenges in California's regulated cannabis market, the state is still considered a pioneer that often sets the bar for cannabis policy nationally and globally. If a concept is viable in California, many industry experts believe it can be exported to other markets. The approval of consumption cafes is a further reflection of cannabis becoming more mainstream, similar to the advent of cigar bars that serve other items in addition to having a smoking lounge. said Joshua Horn at the Fox Rothschild law firm. Assuming California succeeds, we should expect more states to have this kind of offering. The headline is California cannabis lounges and retailers outline plans to embrace cafe law. My take is AB 1775 is a game changer, and already many of our storefront retailer clients are looking to have their local cannabis ordinances updated to unlock the full potential of AB 1775. Selling food and beverages at cannabis cafes is a common sense harm reduction measure that should go global. The Cannabis Cafe Bill is not just about freshly prepared food and drinks and cannabis consumption, of course, but more importantly, it allows operators to sell tickets to live performances of all types, not just the concerts that we've all been to. Imagine fine dining paired with cannabis and a live performance from a full orchestra, or an uproarious comedy festival hosted by my incomparable lawyer, Ngayo Bialam. Shout out to Ngayo at a Destination Cannabis Lounge. This is Omar Figueroa, lawyer, publisher, and ganja instructor, reporting from Sonoma County, California, the traditional territory of the Pomo, Miwok, and Wapo nations, for High at 9, high noon Eastern.
Oh, man. These consumption lounges, I'll tell you. I mean, a lot of them have been already operating in that capacity, and these municipalities have been giving them special variances in order to be able to get around the state law and still be viable businesses. So, but I think the one big game changer is that they're able to sell tickets for events because they were not allowed to do that previously, and the city didn't have any type of workaround for that. So I think that is a big difference that's going to change the game for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lifeline for California operators, right? We're screaming and crying about we need help. Allowing these food sales, allowing these ticket sales and things like that is a lifeline, right? So this is opening up a different avenue, and hopefully adding more of these lounges will kind of cut down on the price gouging that are happening at some of the ones that exist already. And also, shout out Ngayo. My first time at the consumption lounges in Amsterdam was with Ngayo, and we definitely did the chicken dance at the bus stop. He's a great freaking person. So,
what is the chicken dance? Can you show it to us?
I don't want to be a chicken. I don't want to be a duck, so I'll shake my butt.
Oh, boy.
I had to teach Ngayo the song. He didn't know there was a song to it, so we had to. There's a video somewhere.
I just had to see y'all. I just had to see you do it.
Amazing.
Well, I think for the industry, allowing acts to come in, whether they be comedy acts, bands, musicians, things like that, just increases the availability for performers. I mean, my son, we've got bands in the family. He owns a music store. We're trying to look around for places where performers can go and make some money and get their names out there. And this, I think, would be a good opportunity if we can get more of these local jurisdictions to change their rules to open up to allow this. Because the going to a concert, I mean, we used to always sneak our weed in and smoke weed anyway. It didn't really matter. But to be able to go there, to be comfortable, to order your food, to watch a show, to enjoy the show, and know that when you leave there, you're going to be safer to leave after consuming cannabis than you do after knocking back 4 or 5 shots of scotch, I think should be a selling factor to local jurisdictions to increase the business opportunities for people.
You know, maybe they should have hemp lounges too. Where you can freely smoke your THC.
We have those. We have those in Austin. Come down to Austin. I'll take you to some of the CBD lounges we got down.
I mean, and
in the
Rico,
ATX.
And Rico, they
in the ATX
in Austin, and ATX is for people that
ATX.
ATX is for people that can't
Stone
smoke.
Blade and
I'm back. I'm gonna find. I bet there's a lounge called ATX. I'm gonna take you there, Jason. I'm sure there's.
I'm sure there is because everyone just wants to just you know, there's no originality anymore. No originality anymore.
I don't know why this can't compute for you, Jason. It's dumbfounding to me.
It's just dumb abbreviation. It's a dumb abbreviation. It's just
Jason, sometimes you just say things to say them, and that's okay too, buddy.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
but what I will say.
He's trying. He wants to be Rush Limbaugh of YouTube, man.
Oh,
Just
God.
let him do his thing.
You know, we're going to our
Let
final
him do his
commercial. We're
thing.
going to be right back.
Are you a business that's suffering from the hyperinflation that is plaguing America today? We have the solution for you. That's right, Patriot Business Financing. Head on over to www.patriotbfc.com and apply for a loan up to $2 million. Any state, any industry, even the cannabis industry, the CBD industry, as well as the industrial hemp fiber industry. Secure up to $2 million today, and make sure that when you apply, you tell Paul you said hi from High at 9.
You're talking about Rico. But we are back, you guys. Oh man, coming up next, that's right, it is Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis, as well as Justice Served, a 501c3, and apparently she is America's sweetheart. That's right, it is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Yeah. You get enough of her, you might get the diabetes.
Oh,
Better be careful, y'all.
Whoa.
No, it's Diet Coke. Calm down. All right. Well, I have a story that, thank God, has nothing to do with this electoral cycle. So yes, we can get through with hopefully not killing each other. Okay. So this is kind of a follow-up on something we've been following happening in California, and I think there's been some significant developments because a California judge has officially rejected efforts to block a controversial ban on hemp products labeling requirements for requests for a temporary restraining order as a drastic remedy. This decision comes in the wake of new regulations pushed through by Gavin Newsom. Last week, the governor introduced an emergency measure mandating that all industrial hemp food, beverage, and dietary products intended for human consumption must contain no detectable THC or other intoxicating cannabinoids per serving. These regulations, which took effect earlier this month, aim primarily to restrict the sale of intoxicating hemp-derived products. However, critics argue they could severely undermine California's burgeoning hemp industry. In response to the ban, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, along with plaintiffs such as Cheech and Chong Cannabis Co., sought a temporary restraining order, arguing that the regulations are unlawful and could lead to millions of dollars in losses for businesses across the state. Unfortunately for them, Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Stephen Goodrich denied their request, emphasizing that it would unnecessarily halt enforcement before a comprehensive trial could take place. Judge Goodrich clarified that CBD products without THC remain permissible for sale, while those containing THC are restricted to licensed cannabis dispensaries. Jonathan Miller, general counsel for the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, expressed disappointment in the ruling, but stressed that the legal fight is far from over here. The judge looked at the same rules, but came to the opposite conclusion. Governor Newsom has backed the ruling, citing significant public health concerns, particularly for children. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable pointed out the judge's decision on federal law. He ruled that the federal law did not block a ban that would disrupt interstate commerce in hemp products. They also noted the judge's stance on the evidence of harm, as he also ruled that there was no proof of irreparable harm, despite clear evidence of manufacturers and stores needing to shut down, and seniors and veterans losing access to non-intoxicating hemp products they've relied upon for their health and wellness. That is an opinion, as that is a quote. As this situation continues to unfold, many in the hemp industry are left wondering what the future holds, and we will definitely be following this one. I think it's very interesting that you guys want to operate as a hemp company. You're still allowed to sell your hemp products without traceable amounts of THC, but you're screaming and crying and saying that this is irreparable harm. Then that tells me that your intention was to sell an intoxicating product and skirt the regulations and skirt the cost of entry and skirt the things that other operators are doing in the same market. So I'm going to throw it back to you guys. I definitely want to hear what Dale and Omar have to say, and yeah.
This was a TRO. When you the temporary restraining order, when you go in for a TRO, showing you have irreparable harm, if you're going to lose money, that's not irreparable harm generally, because that's what you get in civil lawsuits. If you lose money, and they pay you back. Other kinds of irreparable harm have to be shown. And also you have to balance the equities. You got to not only show that you're going to win, but the equities are in your favor. And in this case, there were clearly products out there in the market that were being sold to people less than 21 years of age that contain THC or other psychoactive THC isomers and things like that. So I don't think that they had a great case to win in a TRO. These are simple minor hearings. You have few papers go in and you try to show that you should have this stopped or not stopped. And the judge decided, no, we're not going to stop this. We're going to let it play out a little bit. And you can still go back in and ask for injunctive relief and writs of mandates and things like that as you go forward. But I just don't know that this is going to have a lot of traction, because the government has the right to change the law. And, you may not like it, but it doesn't always mean it's actionable. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Omar?
Well, I think these emergency regulations, which were abruptly put into place because legislative attempts had failed, is not really what emergency regulations are intended for. And the briefing by the U.S. Hemp Roundtable was actually impressive, and they briefed the issues very well. Unfortunately for them, the judge rejected all of their arguments. And so now that the request for TRO has been soundly defeated, they're probably not going to get a lot of traction seeking a temporary injunction. I think that's what was supposed to be their next step. And I think the court in this case had offered, hey, let's skip the TRO. Why don't we just, have you argue the request for injunctive relief? And they're like, no, we're so sure we're going to win that we want to proceed ex parte with the TRO. And so I think they might have come on a little bit too strong, and, we're pushing too hard, and the judge just pushed back. If they had been a little bit more patient, maybe they would have obtained a different result. But as of now, the emergency regulations are in place, which means that local and state regulators are going to start shutting down all of these CBD stores. They've already started with anybody who has an ABC license or has other types of licensure. Those regulators are having them pull all the products from the shelves. So what we're going to see next is people who don't, or businesses that are not licensed through other means, that they don't have an ABC license, they don't have tobacco retailers license, they will also start seeing enforcement.
I'm curious to hear what Omar and Dale think about the fact that they're still allowed to sell hemp-derived and CBD products without THC in them. I think with this lawsuit, what do you guys think maybe their intent is? Because it seems like it's pretty obvious to me.
It's discrimination.
That's my opinion.
It's discrimination.
It's not just, calm down, Jason.
I think it's practically impossible to produce products that contain no detectable amount of THC, which is the standard in these new emergency hemp regs. So they can't just simply be federally legal under the Farm Bill with 0.3% or less THC. They have to have no detectable THC. And so that basically makes it impossible to sell all types of products, because from what I understand, it's extremely difficult to manufacture products with no detectable THC.
To make it tea-free, it's like a full reverse engineering process, right? So you would have to strip everything.
It's expensive, and people don't want to do it to scrub it out. So that's why they put it out with low THC. And, we're really going to see California wrap their arms around this, good or bad, and see whether it's going to be exported anyplace else. And I hate to point fingers at people, but when you go out there to try and make a buck by going through a loophole, at some point the loophole gets closed and people scream bloody murder. The loophole got closed. It's not fair to me. Okay, well, I'd say draft better legislation. And Omar's right. I think these emergency regs are being misused. That doesn't mean that the courts are going to stop the state from misusing them.
Mm-hmm. And
I wonder, do you think this is going to lead to the next evolution of creative lab testing techniques?
That's a great the evolution of the cheating lab.
I don't see why it would not.
I don't think it would either.
They'll sell higher THC results. Why won't they sell lower?
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, that's absolutely what's happening in the THCA and all these other types of THC products that are sold, for example, here in Texas. We know for a fact, obviously I don't know which lab, but for sure people are doing the same thing they do in the regulated market to inflate THC results, just the other way around, to make sure that it can be certified as hemp.
Easy way to get you to test negative is just use a Whizzinator.
And I think the fact that it's such a high, it's a high cost of entry to actually have the infrastructure that is needed to create a truly tea-free product. You might as well just go ahead and get a cannabis license and do what you were trying to do anyway. So I think it kind of violates the fact that they're trying to skirt what other operators are doing. And me, as someone who is paying egregious amounts of taxes, licensing fees every time I freaking turn around, renewals, new inspection fees, screw you guys. If you want to play with the big boys in the intoxicating cannabis sector. Do it the right way.
But Jenny, COAs are so much cheaper than all of those things you just listed.
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah, but you still can get sued with a COA if it's false. You can get sued for false business practices. And there are plenty of hemp products without THC. Go buy a hemp rope. Go buy a candle. Buy a shirt.
Not according to Rico's story. There's not, Dale.
Well, there definitely are, Jason, and there are tea-free products all over the place. And we're only addressing hemp hemp-derived products that's intended for human consumption. And the fact that they're making the argument that veterans and seniors are going to lose access to non-intoxicating products. No, they're not, because they can still get tea-free products. This is not about access. This is not about seniors and veterans. This is about monetary gain for companies that aren't willing to pay the extreme cost of entry into the regulated cannabis space. In my opinion.
Fair enough.
I agree with you.
All right, Rico.
There have been some pediatric patients who cannot afford regulated cannabis and, have been trying to obtain these unlicensed hemp products that are now going to be fully illegal. And so there was people trying to find workarounds to the system, and they did find some relief. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't regulate these products at all.
Yeah, but Omar, in regards to that, it's all selective-based enforcement. So if a local municipality doesn't want to enforce it, there's no obligation for them to do it. The state's not actually doing the enforcement. They're encouraging the cities to give them a tool to be able to go after the smoke shops. That's what's happening.
Yes, except the state is doing enforcement for all ABC licensees, for example. That's a lot of retailers.
Looking at you, Total Wine and Spirits.
Oh, they got some beverages stashed somewhere.
Literally. I mean, you gotta have an access problem. You have kids or seniors that really need help with products. Hit me up. I'm pretty easy to find. I'll be happy to help you get some access to some safe hemp-derived or whatever products. Find somebody who can donate something to you.
Fair enough. You ready?
Fair enough.
You ready to go, Sohum, Rico?
Let's do it. Closing us out today is the man with over a decade of Canatech and data experience under his belt, developing an athlete-focused lifestyle brand called Grind. So it makes so much sense that he's repping the ATX, an acronym that really grinds Jason Beck's gears.
Stop it.
Sohum Shah.
So stupid.
Yep, that's right. I'm out here repping the ATX, Jason's favorite city. And today I know we got a little bit of relief from the election cycle, but I'm sorry, I got to bring it back, and we were going to talk about
here we go.
Kamala Harris and the DEA playing the blame game on discussing the delay in rescheduling. Vice President Kamala Harris says part of the reason for the delay in the administration's marijuana rescheduling effort is federal bureaucracy that slows things down, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA. The 2024 Democratic presidential nominee briefly addressed the rescheduling process during a town hall hosted by Charlemagne the God of the radio show The Breakfast Club. She also pushed back against claims that her pro-legalization position runs counter to her record as a San Francisco prosecutor and California attorney general, saying those assertions are, quote, simply not true, end quote. Just one day after rolling out a plan to end federal cannabis prohibition, the vice president was asked about the more modest reform of rescheduling, a proposal that the Justice Department formally put forward earlier this year after receiving a recommendation from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, to move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act. She said that the process of reclassifying marijuana has been slower than the administration would like because, quote, we had to work with the DEA, end quote. There's a certain level of bureaucracy that exists in the federal government that slows things down, but essentially to bring down how weed is classified, how marijuana is classified, to make it classified as a lesser harm, that took some time. There's a whole process around that, but that's the work that we have done, in addition to work that we have done writ large on criminal justice reform. As vice president, I have been a champion for bringing marijuana down on the CSA, so instead of it being ranked up there with heroin, we bring it down, she said. My pledge is, as president, I will work on decriminalizing it because I know exactly how those laws have been used to disproportionately impact certain populations, and specifically black men. And that's the end of her quote on that. The vice president in March also expressed some frustration with the bureaucratic process of rescheduling marijuana prior to the DOJ's formal recommendation, calling on the DEA to expediently finish the job. She also privately promoted her pro-legalization message during a roundtable event that day with presidential marijuana pardon recipients. Well, the DOJ has recommended rescheduling. The proposal has faced resistance from the DEA, which has scheduled a hearing on the proposal for December 2nd, after the presidential election, raising concerns that the process will not be completed until after a new president is inaugurated. Separately, Harris was asked about criticism of her record as a prosecutor who oversaw certain cannabis-related prosecutions. Charlemagne said, quote, "One of the biggest pieces of misinformation and one of the biggest allegations against you is that you targeted and locked up thousands of black men over marijuana." She responded, "It's just simply not true. What public defenders who are around these days will tell you is I was the most progressive prosecutor in California on marijuana cases and would not send people to jail for simple possession of marijuana." Former President Donald Trump, the 2024 GOP nominee, separately went after Harris on over her prosecutorial record on marijuana in July, claiming that she put thousands and thousands of black people in jail for cannabis offense. But the full record of her time in office is more nuanced. I'm not going to go into this because we've covered her prosecutorial record ad nauseum on this show. If you'd like to read the rest of the article, you can find it on the website. Shout out to Marijuana Moment for breaking this story. This is Sohum reporting from the ATX. Let's throw it back to the team and see what everyone has to say.
It's only Austin.
Take the bait, Jason.
It's only Austin. You guys.
ATX.
Jason always takes the bait.
Mm-hmm.
Jason always takes.
I love
He's
bait.
our favorite fishy.
I love bait. You know what I'm saying? That's how
I think we're going to, as I said earlier, we're going to see how much opposition there is inside the DEA to this. Because, you know, the people in the marijuana movement since the 1970s have been fighting the DEA's foot dragging.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to, you know, what Kamala is saying, oh, gee, they're dragging their feet. Well, no shit, Sherlock. They've been dragging their feet for decades now because there are forces inside the DEA that don't want this to happen. And removal of the Chevron doctrine is liable to throw this all into out of these regulatory committees and these administrative hearings into the federal courts where who knows what's liable to happen. It just seems like a whole lot of rat race if they just got Congress to kick this out of the Controlled Substances Act, as apparently Kamala wants to happen. But I'm just not sure we're going to get all those stars to line up.
I wish I could find the sound clip from when we first started talking about this way back when, right? Before we were yelling at each other on every episode. And I made the comment that we're going to see this be something that stalls until after the election because she's going to need more time. And you got to elect me because I need more time. It's not my fault this didn't happen. Well, what about the 3.5 years we've already had? And I'm not just talking about Kamala. I don't believe that any of these candidates are actually going to do something that is meaningful for this industry.
Well, I will say this is basically what's happening is this little meme that's going on right now is they're just pointing the fingers and this and that. And how is Kamala going to come through on her campaign promise of legalizing cannabis if while she's part of the administration, they can't even get the DEA to reschedule to Schedule 3?
I think you need to stop putting it in those terms.
That's what I'm saying.
You do because she ain't in charge. There's an empty seat that's in charge right now with Joe Biden.
I don't
Joe
know.
Biden in the couch in the basement, wherever the hell.
I'd say she's more in charge than Jill. She's more of an elected official than Jill is.
Honestly, I've never heard so many people until this election cycle hold up the vice presidency as some omnipotent office. Like that is a lame duck office.
What do you mean?
It has always been that. All of a sudden, now people think the vice president is the most powerful person in the White House.
Well, it is until number one is incapable. That is literally the job of number two. Is you step in with number one.
Day one.
Number one is clearly not.
Day one of his presidency. Why didn't Mike Pence take over?
Hold on.
Why did he not do all this stuff for the whole 4 years Trump was in office?
What was Mike Pence doing? No, I said I don't believe that either are going to do anything that's meaningful for this industry because we don't matter to them. We are just a way to pander for black and brown votes. Get it through your head, people. My head hurts. I can't even say it anymore.
I just have to push back, Jenny Beth, on that one comment that you made back before we were yelling over each other. Like, that's been day one. Come on, girl.
All right. Well, Sohum, this is the whole thing. Okay. Here's what this all breaks down. You cannot have someone like Kamala Harris trying to push this, and you're right, she is in charge. And the last time that we had a vice president that was in charge, the whole presidency was under Bush number 2. Dick Cheney, and who also endorsed Kamala Harris and got us into more wars. And so I'm going to leave it at that.
I mean,
yeah,
I agree with you about Dick Cheney. I agree with you about Dick Cheney, but
just saying,
I definitely don't agree with you that Kamala Harris has been in charge since day one.
She's in charge right now. She's in charge right now.
Listen, man, Kamala Harris is the perfect unifying candidate. She has all of these Republicans and Democrats that everybody hates. They all are rhinos. They all are endorsing her.
Those are all the war.
They are all endorsed. They are all endorsed. If you want Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, all rolled into one person, that's Kamala Harris. Like, she's the perfect candidate for everybody who wants things to just keep on humming along. And if you want absolute chaos, racism, and craziness and chaos in the streets, that's Donald Trump. Congratulations, America. It's all we got here.
Kamala Harris is the presidential version of the social equity applicant that's not going to get more than 10%.
Kamala Harris is she is everything rolled into one and nothing rolled into nothing. She's whatever you want her to be, whatever you don't want her to be, she's going to be that. And Donald Trump, like, who knows if he even knows what the fuck day it is, what year it is, who's in front of him, or who's changing his Depends next.
Oh, boy.
Donald Trump
Don't shout out Jason's position.
He's going to be replaced by J.D. Vance. So what is J.D. Vance's stance on cannabis? Because there's a real risk that J.D. Vance could be our next president.
Whatever Peter Thiel says.
He's selling THC infused guy liner. Last time I seen
JD Vance will be the president after Trump is reelected and completes his.
Then let's
years.
be honest about JD Vance. He is a hand puppet for Peter Thiel and a handful of other libertarian billionaires from Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel's hand is so far up JD Vance's ass, puppeting him by the mouth. So if you want to know what his position is, let's look at what Peter Thiel's position is on cannabis legalization, and that'll tell you what JD Vance's position is.
This is a family show. We don't want to see those positions.
Yeah, easy there, Sohum. Easy there. Whoa.
That's where we're drawing the line.
Yes, fisting is where we're drawing the line.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know what goes down up there in Austin.
That was not meant to be a sexual comment, but if that's what we're thinking,
I know, but you got to understand we're speaking with Jason and Rico, so you got to just pretend that you're talking to a room full of 15-year-old boys because the towels are cracking and asses are getting slapped.
Well,
hey man,
thank God it's afternoon here, because after this I'm about to go celebrate National Liquor Day and take a fucking shot.
Is this what Donald Trump referred to as locker room talk, Jenny Beth?
Or
probably.
Or at the same time, you can go to the bar, and since it's National Bra Day, you could be like, you're trying to pop some bras.
Nah, man, I'm triggered. It should be National Bro Day. What about men? What about men?
I do feel that we're getting
it's also Breast
against.
Cancer Awareness Month, so that might be why it has something to do with Bra Day. There are a lot of fundraisers where you decorate bras or whatever. People donate to vote on them for the best design, and the money is given to breast cancer survivors. So that could be why Mr. Jump Over Women and their Breast Cancer Month.
Shout out to Victoria's Secret.
Hey, shout out! Hey, make sure you guys support something other than Susan G. Komen. Check the receipts. Check the receipts on that and where that money has been in the past in that organization.
Pantene has a beautiful fundraiser that gives wigs to women who are victims of breast cancer or survivors of breast cancer. Excuse me. So,
check the receipts on Pantene too. Who owns that and where that money's going?
Pro V owns that.
I have. It's better.
It's better.
Yeah.
Love it.
They're not selling the wigs like Locks for Love is.
You ready to go? You ready to roll, Rico?
Thank you all for joining us for another heated episode of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the super fans getting their comments posted on the big screen. Do we have any today, Jason?
We did not have any, unfortunately. I did not see any today. I
thought we had one at the beginning.
No. That was yesterday.
Oh man, me and Jason, we going hungry today.
Yeah,
man.
we're starving. Starving like Marvin, wondering like Stevie Wonder. When we're gonna get a super chat.
Wondering like Stevie, Charles and like Ray. Yeah, for everybody else out there, all of our live audience supporters, catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. Vetted correspondent team tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respective opinions to the table. Production team, Cloud Media Partners, all the sponsors keeping the lights on, AV struggles to a minimum. Millie back there keeping things a millie.
And thank you to Catalyst today. Much appreciated. Initiation Catalyst helping us keep these lights on over here.
Making sure that the weed that we talk about every day is for the people, indeed. And always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason why we show up to read these headlines daily. Thank you, too. Even if it's these Trump packs, these Kamala Kush, or whatever y'all want to call it, support that, too. It has been Wednesday, October 16, 2024. Show's over. You all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it's enough for you to put your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for cannabis industry's #1 daily news show, High at 9 News. And today we're going to pop things right back out to the freshest man in the house today, Omar Figueroa. Got some closing remarks for us, Counselor?
Yes, remember to engage in random acts of kindness. Give away some cannabis today. It feels good.
Yeah, spray packs. Put them out in the streets.
Especially if it's outdoor weed. Give that shit all away.